Welcome back to the channel, guys. Today we are talking about the biggest movie to come out probably in at least the last month because we've had a pretty dry wall of movies, I will say, which is Beetlejuice Beetlejuice, which I thought was out a little too early, honestly, because it was like, it's a Halloween movie basically, and it's coming out at the beginning of September. But I'm actually okay with that. Halloween came early this year. Today we have with us Blaire, who was on last year for the Oppenheimer discussion. And we were like, what's the next big one that we want to talk about? And the obvious choice was Beetlejuice Beetlejuice.
That's because I'm spooky.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
That's literally the only qualification I have is I'm spooky.
That's the qualification you need for Beetlejuice. It's funny because Beetlejuice for me actually is more of a recent like. There's definitely a lot of
Mm,
Halloween and horror movies where I didn't really watch them for a long time, and then like basically each Halloween there's a new one that I pick up. It used to be
mm.
like old, long time ago. It was Hocus Pocus and then Nightmare Before Christmas, which I didn't love, and now it's one of my top maybe 10 favorite movies of all time. And then it was Beetlejuice, and most recently it was Addams Family, both the Christina Ricci ones. But
Okay.
Beetlejuice is one that I absolutely just love now. I don't know what it is about it. I guess we'll talk about it, but definitely absolutely love this one. It's just so simple. It's like it's not. There's no huge stakes. It's just like fun, and it's just because it's Tim Burton. I mean, it's obviously in his top three best movies, and it's just got such a Tim Burton vibe to it. There are
Oh
some
yeah.
movies that don't exactly have all of that, like Big Eyes or something, but this one is like you can't get out of this and say this wasn't a Tim Burton movie. But
Oh,
what
for
do you
sure.
think about the original Beetlejuice?
So I watched it Wednesday evening.
Wednesday.
it- yeah, because I was like, oh shoot, you were like, oh, can you see it? And I was like, well, I'm gonna go see it Thursday. Wednesday's the watch the original. But I was surprised before I started it how short it was. But then like when you watch it, it doesn't entirely feel super short. It kind of, and please correct me if maybe I'm thinking too shallowly with this, but like it's kind of how we talked about with the difference, or not difference, but like between Fury Road, like with Mad Max.
Hmm.
The plot wasn't like crazy complex.
Yeah.
It's I was like, oh wow, is that the like when I finished, I was like,
Yeah.
oh wait, is that the plot? Is that it?
Yeah.
Are we done? I totally forgot Alec Baldwin was in it. I don't know. I just found it super endearing
Hmm.
because I'm like, it wasn't afraid to be simple and a little ridiculous.
Oh yeah.
Like it knew.
Yeah.
Um, and I appreciated that because it did the ridiculousness in like short doses. Because
Hmm.
like something I do want to talk about with the new one is the whole wedding scene drove me nuts, but we'll talk about that later. I was like, wow, I'm losing minutes of my life. I can't get back. But with the original one, it had a quick like quippiness to it that I appreciated. It kept things rolling.
Hmm.
And oh man, it was the 80s when it came out, right? Or
Yeah.
was it
Late 80s. I
late
think late
70s?
80s.
Okay. I'm not gonna look at this for like graphics or whatever. I'm like, this was just how it was then. And I think
Yeah.
it's cute. Like they did their best. And I also, of course, love like giant miniature tables. So like I just love that whole element. I think it's brilliant that they use that in that way, especially like digging into the grave of Beetlejuice and
Hmm.
it just being like actual table material. I was like, that's so smart.
Yeah.
Like, but I don't know. What do you think about it?
Yeah. No, I one of the things that I keep that keeps me coming back to it is Alec Baldwin and Gina Davis's characters,
Yeah.
because they're just like I think the allure and the charm of the movie is again that there are stakes. Obviously, a speed movie has to have some stakes, but it's not like insanely serious. Like they literally die at the beginning of the movie, and it's not even like, oh, we're not going to address it that much or like it's sad. They just don't even care. They're like,
No.
well, now what do we do? Like
They
we have
just go, I don't
boom,
think we
boom.
survived that crash.
No,
And
it's
I'm
so
like, you
funny.
did it, babe.
Gina Davis is like, that's weird. Like just wide eyed about everything like all the time. It's like it's just so funny. And I really like that. Um, it's funny. I think I've gotten on Tim Burton movies a lot more recently because when I was younger, I thought, oh, he makes scary movies, and then I'd watch him and go, this isn't scary. What I didn't realize it's not scary movies. it's Halloween vibe movies, which is so much
Yeah.
better. But I love that. I thought it was interesting watching it again. I watched it like 2 weeks ago. Michael Keaton's not actually in it that much. It's kind of like
No.
all those like Silence of the Lambs because it's the whole like they don't want to say his name so he doesn't come out. So he actually pops in like 40 minutes into the movie, which is really interesting. But then it's like for the same deal as with all these other characters that do that, they're not in it a lot. When they are in it, it's a lot, and he really steals the show. I mean, that whole what are your qualifications monologue? That's
Right.
my absolute favorite part of the movie. And yeah, no, it's so good. It's so much fun. And like again, all of the stop motion and the faces that they make and everything are just so interesting. I really like the world of like like the afterlife world, and it's just like take a number. Like that's my worst fear is that hell is just like standing in a line for 1,007 people or something.
Bro, that's purgatory.
I really hope.
Y'all take a
Um,
number.
I'm gonna be there a long time. But yeah, so I really love all that. The one thing about the original Beetlejuice that I think I've seen it maybe 3 or 4 times now that really dawned on me this last time is I thought maybe it was just me. I don't really think the rules of the world make a lot of sense
Absolutely not.
because and it's funny because they legitimately have a rule book and yet
Yeah.
the rules don't make sense because or maybe, I don't know, maybe it's not even just the rules, but like if you go outside the house that you're stuck in or the place you're stuck in, you get into this wasteland. Okay, that's one thing. All the humans can go and come as they please, whatever. That makes sense.
Which, oh, for this rewatch, for the first time ever, I realized they said Titan, which is a moon of Saturn.
And they say that in the original movie.
Yes.
I did not know that. I thought
They
they made
say it
that one
like
up in the second.
once for half a second. So when I heard the word Titan, I was like, why did they say Titan? And I was like, oh
Yeah,
my God, that's what it is. Because I just thought it was a wasteland too. I was like, where the hell is that? Oh, sorry.
that's interesting. No, that's interesting.
No, because then they address it in the next one, which we'll talk about.
Right.
But
No,
like,
yeah,
I was like,
I just
they
thought
do
something
actually
popped off.
say it.
Like I was just focused on it looks like Dune. I did not realize that this was like Thanos' home planet. But um,
With the worms included.
with Thorns, plus Avengers: Infinity War plus two. But yeah, no, I love that movie and all the little crazy things that comes from it. I wonder if Heath Ledger's Joker, um, the makeup and everything, if it was inspired a little bit by Beetlejuice because up until that point they never had black circles
Mhm.
around the eyes.
Right.
But yeah, no, I love the original. The rules don't quite make sense because it's not just that, but what doesn't make sense to me is does he live in the miniature? Where does he live? Does he live in the underworld office? Does he live in the miniature
Mm.
because he's in it? And this happens in both movies. It is consistently inconsistent where they say his name 3 times and they
Yeah.
go in the first time, but they come out and it's like he's still stuck there, even though they said his name. But then they'll say it again as if it's a big thing, and then he pops out, and it's like, well, what was the difference in those 2 times? It never quite.
Wait. Do you mean the first time they go in there?
Yeah, because like in the
When they
first,
dig up the grave? They didn't say Beetlejuice three
they didn't
times.
say, okay, all right, well then
No.
that's the thing in this one. That's the
Yeah.
second.
Well, no, because he pulled them in to the
Okay,
miniature. And
yes,
so then they saw whatever and they started digging. He came out. So then they like I don't know if they did at that point, I don't know if they did the home, but like that's why they got
at
shot
all.
out. Yeah, and then that's why Beetlejuice stayed. Because they do the home thing later, I think. That's
They
why I
did
was
that in
like,
the original too.
yes.
I
Yeah.
thought that was something they just said in
No, no.
this next one, and I was like, that was that ever a thing? I completely missed that
Yeah.
one.
Well, but here's the thing. I literally watched it the day before. So like my head was like looking for the
Gosh,
similarities. So it makes sense why like I'm like, "Oh yeah, no, this one." Like it was already in there.
interesting. Okay, so that makes me feel a little bit better. Um, but yeah, it feels like there's just little things that I'm like, that okay, all right, I'll just accept it. But if you really think about it, you're like, actually, that doesn't quite make sense. But that's
Oh
okay.
yeah.
It's a chaotic world.
Because
But
I
yeah,
also I
and then
think
all of the acting is. kind of over the top, and Otho is annoying but really interesting, and Catherine O'Hara is amazing.
Oh yeah.
And Winona Ryder is such a vibe. Like,
Oh, are you kidding? Like I was like, yes.
um, yeah,
Well, because like I think the thing, and I like this kind of goes with what I was saying earlier, like the movie itself, as you watch it, it did not take itself seriously.
no.
Like you could feel that. And it was like so nice because you're like, oh yeah, it low key like characters, obviously not that because that's their own actual world, but it's like, no, this movie knows it's like a
Mm-hmm.
little obnoxious and ridiculous and all over the place, but it's like we're here for it. Like, why not?
I think it's really interesting that whenever people talk about Tim Burton, they're like, "Oh, everything's dark and everybody has circles under their eyes and stuff," and that is true. But there's a fair amount of Tim Burton movies that are the exact opposite, where it's just too colorful to the point where it's creepy and looks like fake, which is the
Absolutely.
point. Like Edward Scissorhands, I think Ed Wood did that in parts because I know it was mostly black and white. I actually just watched that one for the first time. Um,
Some of the
and
parts of Alice in Wonderland did that,
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah,
remake.
yeah. So
It was
yeah,
like saturated.
yeah. So I think it's really interesting that he has kind of both ends of that spectrum. But yeah, any other thoughts on the original Beetlejuice?
We liked the main like dead underground person in the first one better. She was a mood.
Mm-hmm.
Like since the football guys come in, Coach, I don't think we survived that bus crash.
Yeah.
What
Oh,
what's or like what gave it away or what tipped you
yeah.
off? Like and I'm like, bro, that's a mood. Like
Yeah.
um
And that is something that was really cool too, is just like the weird way that it felt like death was a little bit more abstract. Like they would go somewhere and
yeah,
come back and it's been 3 months and it was just
yeah,
like that. Like it did feel like that weird abstract, uh kind of how death would sort of be. I assume. It kind of felt like this is a weird comparison, but like this one to the second one kind of felt like the first couple seasons of Supernatural to the last couple, where in the first couple they go to
okay.
heaven and it was very abstract, and you take one little weird train toy and then suddenly you've moved. Time's not really there. And then in the later seasons, it's like it's just
They stopped.
it's so much more concrete, and it's a white
Yeah,
room and a lot of other
yeah.
white rooms. So kind of felt like that, yeah, so I guess that is a good segue into the second one. Beetlejuice, I think, I guess implies the existence of a third Beetlejuice. Not going to say it.
There's one of
Hey,
my children. Say hello.
hello. This is a perfect background.
Yeah, I was like,
No one's going
there's
to
the
focus
noisy
on the
one.
conversation now.
I know. Come here, son. Child of mine. Please don't bite me. You like to do that to show affection. I know I caused that, but oh, I
Um,
wanted to say, since we're talking about the second movie now, I got this.
nice, you got that. Oh, that's so cool. That's so
I
cool.
literally had dinner before I went into the theater, and then I saw this sitting among the like, I don't know why I thought there wouldn't be specialty buckets,
Oh yeah, yeah.
but there was the typical bucket shape, and then there's this, and I was like, so I'm gonna hurt myself with the amount of food I'm about to eat, but look at that.
That's awesome. I had seen that. I didn't realize they were even selling that. I mean, I saw this at the drive-in, so like they didn't have anything special like that.
Oh, of course, yeah.
It was
Well,
very
I didn't know they were selling it either until I saw a little kid with one.
yeah.
I just thought it was like a prop, whatever.
Well, at least it's not like a weird implication bucket this time. You know,
Very true.
freaking dude. All right, so start with your just overall thought.
Why do
Just
I have to go first? You go first.
fine. Okay. My overall thought is, and obviously we'll get into more details about each of these things. I definitely still like the first better. I
100%.
had a lot of fun with this one once it got going. I
Mm,
think that it was a little bit too slow at the beginning. And it's
mm,
like in the first one, like not a lot happens at any one time, but things are kind of always happening. In this one, it did feel weirdly enough like they were giving us too much character development, which I almost never,
mm.
but they were diving so much into characters. I was like, nothing's happening. But
Right.
then a lot happens. It's
Very
just
fast.
full chaotic. A lot of really cool ideas. Very cool that it's set right on Halloween. It had a very Hocus Pocus 2 vibe, which isn't a great thing to say. It was
I
better
mean,
than
I haven't seen
Hocus
Hocus Pocus
2.
2.
It was much better than Hocus Pocus 2, but it had that same vibe of like, we'll put it right on Halloween. It's a nostalgic thing and all that stuff. Um, and I did think that the story was it was pretty disjointed. They had a lot of different things they were going for, and all of them were really fun, but some of them just don't really go almost anywhere. And a lot of the stuff just it kind of it's like they were just it was kind of like Fantastic Beasts 2, all these like
Mhm.
plot points just to get them to the end location. But it's like, what was the point of all of them to begin with? Um,
Right.
so it was, but I did I really enjoyed it. There was a lot of fun stuff in this one. I feel really bad for Bob. They did Bob dirty.
They
Uh,
did him so dirty,
Best
bro.
character in the movie, but
I'm
but
so
those,
glad he came back though. Like, because he was massively insignificant in the first movie, but I was so here for it.
yeah.
Well, it's funny that you asked earlier, does he live in the table or does he live underground? Because I was like, in the first one, you don't know. In the second one, it implies that he remains underground because he has that whole office space. So unless he develops that after the whole situation, in the first movie, it's like, I guess the table would kind of be a median where he uses to get out rather than doors because he has his own little loopholes. But that, hi everyone, this is what it's like to have a kitten who's not even 6 months old yet. Come here, you
Climbs all
menace.
the way up, and we have no idea.
I'm gonna hold you until you bite me. Look at that.
No, that's a
Why are
good
you
point
so
though,
why are you so
because
ow?
because again in this one, and I'll get more into it later, but the rules, I'm like, he's like, we can't go through the front door. I'm like, why? Apparently, you work there.
What?
It was confusing. I was like, wait, I never really thought, oh, he has an office here. Like, I guess he
Well,
does.
I didn't either.
So then he's like, we gotta explode our way through. I'm like, just go back to your office. What are you talking about? Uh,
It's like, wait, what's the point of the front door of your office if you have to blow through the back, bro? Like, what is that? I will say, and this is maybe just the table fiction lover for me. I loved the character development and not but, I'm trying to do that now. It did not fit the actual point of the movie because I wanted it. I wanted it more. I wanted to actually see it.
mhm.
But it was like they took the character development and then the plot they wanted to do with all the stuff and they smashed them together.
Yeah.
And they're just kind of like, should be okay. And I'm like, maybe that's like, maybe that's a huge piece of some of the unnecessary sequels or prequels that are coming out. Is just like, I'm like, okay, I get you wanted to extend it. Valid. Well, not valid, but whatever, they're going to do what they want. But it's like you're shoving in information
Yeah.
to make content. And I'm
Mhm.
like, we didn't really need the information, not all of it. Some of it we needed. But then, like, for example, I was so thrilled to see, or like, I'm not thrilled, but like, I was excited to see what was going to happen with Astrid's dad because they
Mhm.
kept building it. It was such a point of resentment between her and I'm going to use character names because you know me, I just
Yeah.
can't. I mean, I know Winona and Jenna's name, but like, it's like the tension, literally, the reason they don't speak is her father. So the fact that they resolved that in maybe 2 minutes, I
Yeah.
was livid. I was livid. I was like, that was pointless. That was absolutely pointless.
Yeah. It's like they had a really grounded movie and a really chaotic movie, and they were just like, we don't really know how to blend it together.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Yeah, it's weird. I didn't expect. It's weird because in any other movie, I'd be like, character development. I want more, please. And in this one, I was like, I just kind of want Beetlejuice. It's like
Yeah.
I don't need it to be like you can obviously have character stuff, but I don't need 45 minutes of character stuff. Especially when all that stuff is about grief and these really heavy
Yeah.
topics that it's great to go into, but in Beetlejuice, they don't. That's not something that is needed, and the audience knows that people die at and I mean I guess at the okay, this is the first big spoiler, but I guess at the end, Yulia. she dies, and that one
That
they
was so funny. Oh my God.
and then that one they were just like, okay, so that fit more with the vibe.
Oh yeah.
But then it was also it didn't fit because they've been talking about grief for 40 minutes that they're just like, whatever, you're dead. It was so like I don't know why they went so hard into all that stuff. And like it was weird to
Yeah.
see like, Winona Ryder's so Lydia, like she yeah, obviously she's
You
a
can
grown
use
up
real
now.
names if you want. Like I
Yeah.
know most
I
of the
just always
people, but I will use character names because they just don't come to my head.
um
People watching, his memory is significantly better than mine. So
well no, it's funny because I always forget the names and I go just to the actors. It's just the opposite.
you
Um
do you. Honestly, you should do a video segment where I get a show that you know the episodes for, and I just say the number or I say the title,
yeah,
and your brain just like it's impressive, honestly.
Supernatural. Thank you. But she, like obviously, she's grown up, so she's going to be slightly different than what she was as a kid. But it's funny because like she still dresses like she did, like she's in that
Right.
phase, but she is in a phase that's just an adult phase. So like it's just funny because it was kind of a weird clash, and I don't know, it worked for the most part. Obviously, I don't want her to dress any other way. It's like that's her, that's her character, but what happened to being strange and unusual? Like, it didn't seem like she was that traumatized after in the first one, to the point where, like, it'd been months, and she got, like, an A on her test on stuff. She's dancing to Harry Belafonte, and, like, it didn't seem
Oh
like she was
yeah.
traumatized. So suddenly, like, we got to bring in the trauma. I don't know why.
Well, no, I totally agree. And like I agree. I wanted her to stay how she looked because it's like, especially like when you are weird and unusual, like that for her was her comfort. It wasn't just to try to be like stand out. Like that's who she was, you know? So it makes sense that she brought it into her adult life. But I totally agree. I'm like, look, if you're gonna make her this neurotic adult, but you're not gonna specify the thing that really broke her, because you're right, it wasn't Beetlejuice
Mhm.
because she was way too calm and casual by the end of the first one.
Yeah,
She was totally resolved,
yeah,
which makes sense because Homeboy was like pretty much out of the picture. And also in the first movie, she saw a ghost. She didn't see like I get that's because she's in this weird between whatever, but like she didn't see flashes of ghosts.
yeah,
Like literally just saw them like they were normal, you know? So
yeah,
I was just like, I totally agree. I'm like, look, if you want to bring in that element, you need to tell us why.
yeah.
And then if you want her to go back to how she was, you need to resolve that by the
Mhm.
end.
Mhm.
Otherwise, don't bother.
Yeah, so I think weirdly enough, they could have done less work. I almost never
Yeah.
say that, but they could have done less work and it would have been better. Um, However, with that being said, I think what it is there's just some actors who like they do something when they're younger, and then when they're older, their type of role changes a lot.
Yeah.
Like kind of like Al Pacino in The Godfather. He was like this calm, cool, collected guy. Every role Al Pacino plays now is just like, hey, I'm Al. Like he's like
Yeah.
that really creepy grandfather. And so Winona Ryder, her thing, especially with like Stranger Things, she's the batty, crazy woman, who like goes around with these weird theories and conspiracies, and no one believes her, but she's always right. So I think it kind of they were going off that vibe instead of like the old Lydia.
No,
Um,
that makes sense because especially and this was a huge like part that endeared me to Lydia and in the first movie, and this is an entirely like other whatever life conversation out of it, but like her casual feeling and connection to literally just death and existence
mhm,
was like, and then maybe other people would disagree with this adjective, but I found it charming because I'm like, you know what though? She's grounded in that.
mhm,
Like, she's just like, okay, is what it is. What freaked her out was Beetlejuice and his antics. Like, that freaked me out too. Like, that looks like a bad trip. But it's like she lost all of that
yeah,
in the second one. And
yeah,
maybe people are like, oh, but she's an adult now. I'm like, okay, if you are settled in that stuff as a kid and teenager, you don't lose it.
right.
If anything, it just gets more like it gets more complex and you get more comfortable. So,
Yeah. I mean, sometimes, it's like you grow out of stuff, but something that, I mean, because, it's like, oh, it's not just a phase, mom. Like it
right.
feels like it could be a phase, but it's something that she was so cool with stuff. And especially if she was so cool with it, having confronted that actual thing in so many different ways.
Yeah,
you'd think like it wouldn't bother her. I don't know.
right.
And again, the fact that we're going this much into character grief and development from
Right.
Beetlejuice is ridiculous.
Yeah, because
Um,
I think I agree with what you were saying. I think they tried to do too much too fast in a short window with too many characters. Because like even just for instance, curly-haired boy who fell the tree, the bad guy, the bad
oh yeah,
kid.
yeah, the Ghost Boy.
I was like, bro, how can y'all just casually throw in one, he's a ghost, two, he murdered his
Yeah.
parents. And then like three, the whole stealing her. I was like, bro, what is happening? Beetlejuice's ex is out. He wants to steal her soul. Like, I'm like, why are there so many plot points that like are resolved in 2 seconds? Felt so unnecessary.
So I guess we're getting kind of into the story of it, which is, if you guys haven't already picked up, very disjointed. I love a lot of the ideas here. It felt like a lot of cool anthological stuff that they could have done for like a little short or something. A lot of really cool ideas with like this boy that Astrid, who is Jenna Ortega, kind of falls for, and she's got to stop falling for tall boys that are kind of cute and act all humble because they never turn out to be good.
I mean, man,
But there's
I
this
mean,
this whole
I can't comment on why they do that, but it happens.
yeah, and basically he tricks her into switching her soul for his so he can come back to life. I will say all that stuff did shock me. Both twists were really, really good. Like it turns out he's a ghost. I was like, I should have picked up on that. And then that he was a bad ghost. That was both very interesting. But yeah, it kind of comes out of nowhere, and I'm like, okay, so is this the plot of the movie? But there really is no one single plot of the movie because the first 40 minutes is character stuff. Then it's like, here's a plot of the movie. Now here's how we get Beetlejuice in. I don't know. And it was weird because he kept like showing her himself to Lydia, and then he was like, here's my chance. And I'm like, what are you to do what? What are you talking about? Here's my
Do
chance
what?
to do what? Your whole
Yeah.
point is that people call you up to exercise people, basically, like get them to go. Who are you exercising here? There wasn't a clear point to that until this
Well,
happened.
no, I think when he said this is my chance, he meant to get Lydia back.
Oh, okay, okay, that's true. I guess yeah, I don't remember why.
Because he had her picture like you would have your wife's picture on your desk.
That's true. Yeah,
So he was like, "This is my chance," because he had no reason to go back and see her. So when she said his name
yeah.
or
Why
like whatever he saw her, it's just like oh, this is it. Like I can get her back. And I'm like, okay, wow, unhinged pause. Dang. Um,
does
but
he
no, I
have
think
clear motives for marrying her, or does he just want to marry her in the
he's
first?
literally just a creep.
Okay, all right. I couldn't remember if there
Yeah.
was a reason that he needed to marry her, but
Nope. He's just a creep.
great.
Yeah. Well, because what here's my thing. Okay, well, first off, and there's what's it's like there's literally not much to say about this. What was the whole point of his ex-wife?
No, I know that
I
was
was
she was
like,
literally the villain of the movie, and she didn't do anything.
anything. And she like I was like, bro, filming her parts must have taken a day. She ran around like 12 hallways and then was eaten by one of the sand snakes. That's it.
Yeah,
I was like, babe, what was your point in this film?
I know. I'm like they
Because they
literally.
could have taken all of that out.
I mean, honestly though, and the whole no, actually they really could have because there was nothing that she actually affected aside from Beetlejuice going, "Oh no, this might be bad."
Yeah. And trying to run away from her. Like, and I'm like, that could have just been cops.
Yeah, like it just, I don't know. Um it just seemed like it was the point the starting off point for the plot of the movie to have like all these complications, but I mean the scene where she pulled herself back together when she first got that was very, very cool.
Yes.
But the entire point of her being there was none. That and the Willem Dafoe stuff, which again, I loved the idea. I love that he's this ghost who is stuck in, this. I'm an actor and I'm acting out my roles for eternity. I think that's hilarious because people do that in real life and they're not even dead yet. and he's
Oh
got
yeah.
nothing else to do but that. I think that was really cool. But again, they were like at the end, which we'll get to, they were like, "Oh shit, we forgot that he's part of this. We got to bring him in, so we'll bring him in, make it a big thing, and then just freeze, and now we don't have to worry about it." It was like they brought it in. It was like there's so many things that they brought in, and we're like, "Oh crap, we got to do something with that." Well, we'll just kind of glance over it. And again, it's not that serious. It's just a chaotic movie, whatever. But like, oh, there were just so many things, and then Lydia's groom to be, like husband to be, who I don't know. Justin Thoreau's always creeped me out a little bit. Like I feel terrible saying that, but he's always kind of weirded me
No, as
out.
soon as I saw his character, I went, "Oh no!" And then we saw the back of his head, and I saw a man bun, and I went, "Oh
Yeah, yeah,
no!"
yeah, I know.
I was like, "No!" Oh, bro, that gaslighting though
Oh
was
my
like
god.
top tier. I was like, "Oh my God, we've seen you for not even 5 minutes, and you have like massively gaslit her."
Yeah, yeah.
To be like, it hurts me to see you feeling these things because
Oh
when
my
I see you
god.
feel these things, it's like I'm feeling these things. So when you're in this state, I'm feeling these, and I'm like, I literally just witnessed like gaslighting at its maximum in like 10 seconds.
And like the proposal scene was
Oh,
somehow
it hurt.
was
It
so
hurt.
much more awkward than the one in Alice in Wonderland, where it's just like it's kind of awkward. She runs away, and then in this one, it's so much worse because who proposes at a funeral or a
And then
wake?
it just, and then she pretty much was like, not now. Let's not do this. And then he continued to like, you're like, oh.
There were
I
some
used to
scenes in this movie.
question like I used to question when people would like run away or leave when someone said no to their proposal, and then now I've seen an example where they don't. And I'm
Yeah,
like, okay, just get away from the
like
situation, run away.
I just think there were a lot of scenes in this movie that go on for just a little too long.
Ooh,
I
the
don't know why
dance
they
scene,
kept.
bro.
It's like one of those things where like you film a lot of stuff and then you go, all right, now we'll figure out what's the best and cut it together shorter. And they just didn't, and they just kept writing pages in the screenplay for it, which doesn't make sense for specifically the wedding scene, which not only goes on too long, but I get it.
Too
It's the
long.
climax of the movie. All this stuff's coming together, even though it really shouldn't have
Is
been made
it the
that way.
climax?
Kind of is.
They like turned it into it at the end, like, oh, there's one thing we didn't wrap up. Climax! And I'm like,
Yeah. So they just put everything together there at the end. But it also doesn't really make sense because I know Beetlejuice is a very showy person. He wants this wedding to be everything wants and more. But he is literally in the first one, he had to rush it to make sure that he didn't get screwed over and it would happen.
right.
And in this one, he takes so long to do it. And
I guess,
I will say I also liked the music in the first one better.
oh,
I
100%.
did think that the song I've never heard that song before, the wedding cake one, but I think it was a really funny choice for it. And I liked all the dancing and everything. That was really cool. But
But
it
that went on too
I know
long. Well, because here's the reason I think if someone was going to defend it, like that he took so much longer is because he's like, well, we had a contract. So like you can't get out of it now,
that's
rather than
true.
his name being the like, you get to be here, you don't get to be here. But
That's true.
um I will say, and this is just because I'm like partial to Jenna Ortega. Like we know this. We being you and me.
Yeah,
Everyone else makes sense. But like the they get to the church and like I don't even remember the character's name, but like Man Bun was like in this whole moment, Jada's like, are we gonna do this or what? Like,
yeah.
it's like, yes, keep going. That's exactly how I feel. Is this done yet? Like, keep going.
I know. So yeah, so the story, aside from it being very disjointed, did have some fun stuff because I feel like we've been really diving into this movie hard, like criticizing it. But
Well, but I'm
let me
like, if
just
you're
say,
gonna do a sequel, be ready. Like, because if
that's
it
true.
doesn't live up to the hype of the first one, like,
That's true.
be
They
ready
had
for
like
people who
35
love the
years
first
to
one.
figure it out. But I will say there were also some good things in it. Obviously,
For
let's
sure.
just start off with Michael Keaton as Beetlejuice. The one thing I
Yeah.
will say is it made in this one the entire point of Beetlejuice, the original, is that he is the one to be afraid of. And in this one, it was an interesting twist that he's the one helping them and also an antagonist. So that was kind of cool. Although it's like, all right, so if he gets loose, then it's it kind of wasn't a problem. I mean, it wasn't
No.
really like a problem like in the first one. Um, but Michael Keaton was awesome. I mean, yeah, it acted
Oh, for sure.
incredibly. So much more fun Beetlejuice stuff. It was very cool when the Ghost Boy stamps his ticket and he's like, "You're too late," and then Beetlejuice pops up like, "Not you're fucked," and then he like drops him down into hell. That was awesome.
That was so good. Yeah, and I mean, you're totally right. The acting is spectacular.
All
Taking
across,
it out of like story complex,
yeah, all
spectacular.
across. Everybody was so good.
Everybody. And there were great moments. Like I was dying. I turned my phone off, otherwise I would have written better notes. But um there is when Lydia's like freaking out and she goes to the porch and she's like, oh, oh.
Oh
And
yeah, yeah, yeah.
she's like, oh, it's you. I thought I was gonna be attacked by a moose.
See, I'm not gonna lie. That was one of those scenes that I went, what is this movie? What's going on? Why did you just write this random weird stuff? This is just like I feel like I'm peeking in on just like a generic conversation that has nothing to do with this movie. And I
Yeah.
liked it, but it was also kind of weird. Like I was like, we're 35 minutes in this movie. Do you know what you want to do with the movie? Like, yeah,
Yeah.
like, um,
Well, because I
I really
appreciated
liked.
those moments
That's
because
true.
it, well, no, no, no. You're 100% right. It was literally like, what are we doing? But I was like, I'm here for it. Like whatever. No, I appreciated those simply because they were not hit on your head character development.
That's
It
true.
showed how Lydia and Delia were different. And then when Jenna Astrid said something like super mean and Delia was like, don't worry, she doesn't mean it. That's just karma. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah,
So it's like I totally agree. It could have been handled better and not but like I was also just a really big fan of like, okay, this is a nice example of how to show character development by not hitting us on the head with it, but showing how their dynamics change. Because in the first Beetlejuice, they did not like they barely spoke.
that's true. They did
And
that.
she
That did.
addresses that in the movie. She's like, you barely said like 10 words to me.
Then that's fair because that conversation, that weird moment, did lead into that conversation about how we've gotten so much closer. And I really really loved when Delia went up to the school window and she was like, "You have to come down right now. I've lost everyone. Stop torturing your mom." Like, oh my god, it was so good. I love
Strahd,
Catherine O'Hara.
Strahd, stop
Like,
tormenting your mother. I saw an interview with her and Jenna in it, and like I don't know what the interviewer asked, but it kind of like took Jenna off guard for a second. Then like she mentioned, filming Wednesday and whatever, and that was her like current project, which I was like, lit season two.
yeah,
But then like they quipped at each other a bit and like would you say Catherine O'Hara? Is that her like
yeah.
full name? Okay. She was like she made a comment and then Jenna goes, what'd you lose your kid again? Like from Home Alone, and I was like,
That's
yay.
um. So since we're kind of on this part with the acting and all the different characters, one thing that we were talking about briefly and that I noticed or just I hadn't thought about it until after I saw the movie was this is a movie that had three female lead
Mm,
characters, and no one was judging it like they did with the
yeah.
Marvels, even though two out of these three main characters came back from the original, and even though in the Marvels all three were already established people, why in the Marvels it was like this is a problem, this is woke, versus this one I don't know. But in this one, maybe it was because it was a very old movie. They're just bringing it back. I don't know. They're and Jenna Ortega's perfect. Like, why wouldn't you put her in this movie? But no one was talking about that in a good way. Like, it wasn't a point of contention. It's just three female characters leading the movie, and everyone was totally cool with that, which I thought was really really cool.
When you say Marvels, do you mean I didn't see it, the second Captain Marvel movie that
Yes,
has
yes,
all the okay. I mean I have an assumption, but this would take so much more analyzing than we need to get into.
yeah,
It's because the Marvels is a superhero movie.
yes, that's true.
And the dynamic of men and women in superhero movies and women, they can be superheroes so long as they're not as important front up or like there as men are.
Or they
You
smile.
know what I mean? Dynamically. And like Beetlejuice. had two main women characters anyway,
Yeah.
Barbara and Lydia. And I mean, there was other women too, but like they were like the big points. And so it's kind of like, okay, well, it makes sense. Two of them are returning, so of course they're gonna have to be a lead anyway. But I do think different conversation. It's because the Marvels was a typically male dominated genre.
Yeah, and that's it's true. It's the audience too, because then you have all of the Marvel boys being like, I want my Captain America back. Anybody who's watching Beetlejuice doesn't give a shit. They're just there for the
No, especially if they're like Tim Burton fans. Like
yeah,
we're like we want whatever is different, weird out there that's like reverse.
that's fair.
All of the dynamics are different. I will say this is not related to what we just said, but Tim Burton made me think about it. Not like this is a stress ball, by the way. So
No.
I was like, I'm like showing this in my hand. Um, I did not like how gory it was. And when I say gore, I don't only mean like bodily. I mean just like there was just so much extra like effect and stuff that I'm like, that's so unnecessary. Because the
Like
first Beetlejuice was not like
which parts?
just like the whole like it was really funny with like the shark bite out of the body and then like but like then the whole scene with her having the Beetlejuice baby was super
Oh, that
gross
was yeah, that was
and then like just other parts that I'm just like this is unnecessarily gross in these details
that's
because the
true.
original one had moments that were gross but it wasn't overtly like nasty.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't
It was a lot more like creaturey stuff in the first one.
know.
This one, what I did notice that at the end, they're having this nice moment, and I'm like, oh, this isn't going anywhere good. And then she's having the baby, and I was like, oh no, it's gonna be the Beetlejuice baby.
I know.
I
I was like, oh,
noticed
where are
it
we going?
was a lot. It was like a slasher movie, and I was like, that is a little bit different. It was very subconscious, but I felt that. I did like
And
when
then
Charles
no,
sat
go ahead.
down. He just sits down, and the blood just because sitting down just that was funny, but that
See,
wasn't really.
that's funny. That's funny.
Yeah.
But like the scene where they first see Beetlejuice and Man Bun thinks it's a dream.
Oh
Like
yeah,
Beetlejuice spills his guts and then the baby, and I'm like, none of that is
that was weird. That
necessary.
was weird.
I'm like,
Just going a
I
little.
get that, and I appreciate the throwback to the like showing something scary, but I was like, the rest of that, you it could have been done more tactfully.
Yeah, yeah.
Personal
That is
preference.
fair. That's definitely a point I didn't even think about, but there was a little bit more gore in this one. I kind of assumed that the first one had more, but I guess not.
Okay, because I guess when I say gore, I don't necessarily mean violence. I
Hmm.
just kind of mean like that grossness of like, oh, that's so
Yeah,
unnecessarily
yeah,
nasty. But like in the first one, like with the football players and all that stuff, the costumes definitely had a level of like,
yeah,
ooh.
yeah.
But like it didn't have so much of like that nasty overlay.
That's a good point.
Also, the
Um,
whole piranhas thing, it was funny, but they also banked a little hard on that being as funny as like it was in the first like 5 seconds we saw the piranhas wiggling around.
yeah.
Like, but some people behind me loved it. They kept laughing, and I was like, oh wow.
I wasn't sitting there like, oh, this is supposed to be funny the whole time. I just thought, oh, it's another cool costume design
I
and
did appreciate
another
it.
cool,
Yeah,
like, in this world where I do like everybody who dies, you you just see perpetually for eternity how they died. I think it's really funny.
right.
Which does get into another thing that I think was a very, very good part about this movie, which was the
Mm,
effects, all the aesthetic stuff. Obviously, it's Tim Burton,
yes,
so you're going to have all of that be very, very well done. But this was definitely like one of the most Tim Burton-y movies in that respect. I
for sure.
am a huge fan of the fact that they almost, they had to. They can't do CGI, like they had to do stop motion, practical effects, all that stuff. Because it's funny because it brings up this thing of like, do we like that stuff because it looks better, or do we like
Mm,
it because it's nostalgic? Because back then it's like,
mm,
okay, this is good, but then like in the 2000s we were like, that doesn't look real, it looks cheesy. So is it now we're like, oh, it's a nostalgic thing and I'm cool with it looking like that? Or does it look better than CGI, even though we can tell it's fake?
mm.
I don't know.
That's a fantastic question, and I think that might be a very subjective preference. Because like especially, and we're not going to go farther than a toe dip on this, but like especially some people love certain AI generated images And
Hmm.
then some people, like for me, certain ones, you see it's AI in like automatically and it's unnerving,
Yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
know? So some people might really love the stop motion a lot more. And then to other people, it might be like there's that unnerving feeling, whatever it is, and
Mm.
CGI is smooth enough that it satisfies whatever that part is that doesn't
Yeah.
like the differentness of stop motion.
That's true. And I will say it was cool that like the stop motion this one, you can tell even for being stop motion, they've advanced stop motion to the point where it does look a little bit smoother, but it still has that feel to it.
Oh, for sure.
That is a good point that it's like some people just like aesthetically just don't like it. I used to not like stop motion. Now it's like one of my favorite things. I love watching. It's
I
just
mostly love stop motion, not so much about how it looks, but so just knowing how it's created. I like love watching stop motion because every once in a while my head will remember how it's created. I'm like,
yeah.
dang, that's so hard. This is so good. You know what I mean? Like
It's
from a
oh no,
creative respect.
I love when there's a new stop motion movie out just because I want to watch the BTS on it. I
Yeah.
think it's amazing. Like I just watched the re-release of Coraline, and I not that we have time to get into all of that, but there's one video where they show how they do like one frame of
Mm.
the movie, which is absolutely bonkers. Like you have to actually be, I think, clinically insane to enjoy doing this. But also, there was somebody who is, she said at that point, the only person in the world who knits tiny clothes like this big with like a huge magnifying glass. Like I wouldn't have the patience for that. So it is fascinating. I'm really glad that they did that. All of the stuff, all the practical effects, like all of the like the faces being pulled in, the sets, the cinematography and the lighting and the colors of all the sets and how they're clearly again are sets and like even Willem Dafoe's like his like he got beaten in or something in his head like I think he fell
Grenade.
and that was a grenade and obviously it doesn't look completely real but it looks cool.
It looks Beetlejuice aesthetic,
Yeah.
where you look at it and you're like, that's not realistic. But you're like, but you know what? Neither was most of the original Beetlejuice. Like, it
Yeah.
was comical.
And they even added stuff in this one. They did like the whole with Charles going down in the plane, and that was funny too. Because like, no, the plane's not what killed him. He drowned. No, and then it just kept going, and it
How
was
did
like
he
cool
die?
claymation stuff. I was like, that's different. I've never. I don't
Yeah,
think Tim Burton's ever done like a pure claymation scene like that.
that was cool. I liked that.
So I really, really liked that as well. I think that was really cool.
I mean, all in all, I personally still think it's a good movie. It's not a great movie. The first one was obviously better because that's how a lot of these go. I think it had a lot more potential, but the disjointing of everything really kind of messed with the vibe.
Yeah.
They had too many storylines all at once. So they
I
cut some out or followed one more heavily. Because I think the point of the ex-wife, besides some graphic effects, was it gave a background on Beetlejuice. That's it.
Yeah, yeah.
Other than that, like, what was her point? We never were told where Beetlejuice came from or how he died or any of that. But it was like, what was her point other than like showing?
And I almost didn't. That wasn't a question I was asking. Where did
Hmm,
Beetlejuice come from? I don't care.
me
Like,
either.
I don't. He's Beetlejuice. Like, he's a weird
Yeah,
poltergeist demon thing, and he's just there, and he's crazy. And I mean, then some people might want to know. That might be interesting for some people. And it was a really cool. Like, that wasn't something different. I had never. Actually, that happened twice in this movie where he just spoke, and it was completely. Actually, that happened the first one when he spoke for Lydia at the wedding. But in this one, he spoke and not only was it like the speaking another language, which I thought was cool, and that whole this the aesthetic of like that whole like old
I thought
time,
that was really funny.
but then also when he spoke and he was singing the "I'll be right here waiting for you" song, that was cool too. That was a really funny moment. Um,
Well, I love that during the whole moments where they had the Spanish speaking, he was speaking English with his mouth.
oh yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, and then it was a
I was like,
Spanish
wait,
overlay. I thought that no, I thought that was so funny. I was like, that's so great, like A plus.
that was a really cool. Like this movie was filled with really interesting, cool stuff. I loved all the Halloween stuff. I think really it is just honestly a problem that we're never not going to find with a lot of these blockbuster sequels years and years later, which is it's a nostalgia fest, which is fine. You can have nostalgia stuff. I think this one did a pretty good job of not making it just, hey, there's this thing, hey, there's that thing.
Right.
They just couldn't get the plot together, but they had one. But I think it's just hard because there's this movie that comes out 40 years ago and it's unassuming and everyone just finds it charming. You get 40 years of buildup, like, wait, this movie's really good. And people put more and more love on it that it originally didn't have because it was just a random movie. And now suddenly you go, we're going to do a sequel and it's got to be the best thing on this earth or it's not going to, and no
Exactly.
matter what they do, it's probably, not, it's never going to live up or be like, oh, that was disappointing within this or this. I mean, just the fact that we're going in an hour of just minute details on this movie shows just how much people are like, I want it to be so good. But that's so hard, and like all the stuff that they gave us in the movie was very, very cool. Like I loved a lot of it. Like I definitely between this and the other movie that was showing at the drive-in, which was Harold and the Purple Crayon, which I actually really enjoyed. I did not expect to enjoy that movie that much. I loved both of them. I would still probably go back and watch Beetlejuice again first, just because of all the complexity of the world and the look and the vibe that it has. Even though I think it's hard to say. I want to. I think they were maybe about even actually in terms of their quality
Wait,
because
what was the other one?
Harold and the Purple Crayon because it was a way simpler movie, but I also just really liked it. I still think Beetlejuice,
I don't think I
overall,
can watch that movie.
huh?
I don't think I can watch that movie. We'll talk about it later.
Okay, yeah. But
Because I'm like a traditionalist when it comes to stuff like that. So
yeah,
like, I'm like, where's my little boy? The little one with the
yeah.
curly hair. Where is he?
Oh, you only get Zachary Levi. That's all you get. At least it wasn't Chris.
Anyway,
Um, but yeah, real quick, one last thing I wanted to
yeah.
mention about this movie was I did not expect Charles to be as much of a character as he
Mm.
was, because for the sheer fact that Jeffrey Jones is a piece of shit.
Is he?
Um, he's a pedophile.
Oh, see, I don't know these things.
So that's why he's not in the movie. And I was actually surprised they were, and that's why they didn't really see his face except for a picture or a claymation, or he doesn't have a head. And that's the whole reason.
That makes so much more sense.
But I'm like, I'm surprised
Okay.
he did as much as he was, the character himself.
Oh, you know what I appreciated?
Hmm.
The bird watching. Do you know why I appreciated it?
Because in the original, he's a bird watcher, right?
He
Or-
picked up binoculars for like 5 seconds
yeah,
and then like saw a book about bird watching, looked out the window, saw like a bird, and then was like, huh. And then like put it down. And that's it. There's no other mention of bird
yeah.
watching. And I was like, oh, so
Wait,
the more he
where was the
stayed
bird
there.
watching in the second one?
No. Well, in the first one, they bought the house just to relax and be at peace and all that stuff. That's why he bought it.
Yeah.
Literally, the bird watching was like a new thing to him when they moved in.
Oh, you're
At least,
saying in the original that you.
yeah. So the
Yeah,
fact that like 40 years later or whatever, he's this huge bird watching enthusiast. I was like, that's amazing. I love that they ran with that.
I think this movie also had even though obviously the other three are the main character, Beetlejuice is like the title character. And in the first one, we're like, oh, Beetlejuice is the title character, but he's not the main character.
Right.
It's the other two, and in this one they have the other three to fill in, which was great. But I don't think I had that connection like I did with Gina Davis and Alec Baldwin originally. I think obviously they did a really, really good job with it anyway. But obviously they could. I mean, I don't know if Gina Davis could come back or not, but obviously Alec Baldwin was not coming back. But I think that's part of it too, and then they make Beetlejuice a little bit more of the main character, and
Well,
it's so
they
hard
couldn't.
because you want to see him, but you don't want to see him. You want it to be the mystery, but you want to see a lot.
Well, no, I actually really thought about Gina Davis and Alec Baldwin because I was like, huh, like I wonder why. And then I went, they can't grow old.
Yeah, that's
They're
true.
ghosts.
That's true. That's
So I
also
was like, And then, of course, the beauty with Beetlejuice is he has so much makeup and he also just looks gross anyway. It's like any aging with Michael
Yeah.
Keaton, you just cover with stuff, right? But I was like, oh, like even if they wanted to come back, they could never come back because they can't age.
Yeah.
So they would have to do full CGI if they were
I
going
don't want to do
to.
that. That's a good point
No. So
too. Yeah.
I was like, yeah, no, that's exactly why they're not in this.
Huh. Because yeah,
I did appreciate the Soul Train. That was really cute.
that was cool. That was a really good idea.
Yeah.
That was a really cool idea.
Except for one of the trains left at like 10:13. And I was like, why'd you do that? How is that efficient? 10:13?
I'm
Who
pretty
wants to get
sure.
there at 10:13?
You mean like just that it's a late time, or just that
No,
it's?
it's a weird time, like 10:15, like 10, like
I'm fairly
10:30, like
certain that like a
10:13?
lot of trains and stations and stuff like that, they have. I mean, planes take off at 11:07 for no reason.
Well, yeah, that bothers me too. Don't do that. Pick a
Um.
better time.
Well, so while we're winding down to our last about 7 minutes here, overall thoughts, and then I'll give my score.
Good movie. Story was really all over the place. Loved the main characters. I liked a lot of the return. Good effects. I really hope they don't do a third.
Yeah. Yeah, I really really liked it. I had obviously had a lot of problems with it, but I still really liked it. It's a very enjoyable movie, especially if you've seen the first. And I think that they generally did a pretty good job with it. If they had gotten the story tighter, it would have been so good. And I do appreciate character development. I don't want to go in here being like I don't appreciate the character development. It's just not for this movie. Like, please, sir, can I have some less? Like,
No,
uh,
you're understand like
yeah.
exactly because first Beetlejuice didn't have it. So
And it's a lot of pressure, and I get that. And there was a lot of really, really cool stuff. And I would still go back and watch it again a ton of time every Halloween because it's such a Halloween, every other
maybe.
every other Halloween. It's really in my mind the visual that's sticking is if this is the movie, this is good. I don't really care as much, and then this is where it got fun, maybe a little too chaotic, but fun.
Hmm.
But this first 40 minutes where I was like, I just don't care.
See,
Um,
I'm so flipped.
I know,
I'm
I know.
But like that's how we've kind of always had that dynamic because I'm like I'm so here for just like table fiction, kind of just learning stuff and nothing happens.
So I'm gonna say for the original Beetlejuice, I'm gonna give that a 3.5 out of 4.
Agreed.
For Beetlejuice, I'm going to give it a 3 out of 4.
Yeah, I mean I
And
would either say 3 or 2.5 personally, but
yeah, I think this is one that should probably be a 2.5. I always round up if I'm gonna round either. I think it should be a 2.5 if I'm looking at it objectively, but I still really like the vibe of it. I love the experience of watching it. Beetlejuice himself was awesome. There's a lot of cool stuff in it. So I'm gonna
I'll
give
give it that. I'll give it
give it
that.
a
I'll give
three.
it a 3.
Like a lot of it still just the feeling was really cool. And
Yeah.
I'm biased because Halloween's coming up and everything. I'm just feeling good. But yeah. So what's I guess in the last couple minutes here, what movies that are coming up throughout the rest of the year? Horror, Halloween, otherwise. What are you excited
I don't know.
for?
Because I'm like I don't have cable, so I don't see commercials anymore. But like I mean, I know Wicked's coming out. Moana 2's coming out, which I'm more curious about that because I'm like I want to see what they do. Like I'm like what's next, rather than they need to have it. Um
Like Moana 2 is like everyone forgets that it's coming out because they just like
yeah,
weirdly announced it very shortly before it's coming out, and it's like a big of the recent Disney movies. Um,
right.
so that's
What
just kind
about
of
you?
one thing no one's talking about. I genuinely forgot it's coming out this year.
Yeah. Oh, and I'm looking, yes, people, I had to look up lists because I just don't know movies. I want to see Salem's Lot. I
Mm-hmm.
really, really do because I love Stephen King just book wise. And like, like the two Carries. I was really fond of both of them in their own different ways. So like I want to see what this Salem's Lot is and how it's going to be done.
True. Yeah, we got a lot of good horror movies still left to come. I mean, we've got I mean, Joker is not a horror movie, but it's pretty creepy. Joker, we've got Smile 2, we've got Speak No Evil, which I think either just came out or is about to come out with James McAvoy, so that's always good. We've got Heretic, which is a very interesting idea.
There's what is it, In the Front Room or like The Front
The
Room,
Front
something like
Room,
that.
yeah, I forgot about that. Wow, I want to see that one. There's just too many
That
good
one's like,
ones. That one looks really good.
It does.
There's like another one that's kind of like this indie. It's gonna get like passed over, but it looks really really scary. I can't remember what it was, but it was something like that. Maybe another A24 one,
Mm,
and then Nosferatu, which I'm very
okay.
excited for. Another Robert Eggers, all that cinematography and cool vibes. Well, there is one that's coming out right at the end of December. I'm probably gonna do it as like my first review of next year because it'll be perfect. It's called Y2K. It's an A24
Mm,
movie, and it's basically like a slasher movie, but if it was all the technology, like when 1999 turned to 2000, and they were worried about Y2K, and like everything's gonna like kill us or the computer's gonna break. It's like all the computers break, and then they start killing everybody. Like that just seems like it's gonna be a really interesting. It's funny because the '90s are the new '80s. Like that's all the nostalgic that's going
which hurts a little bit.
with like
Hurts a little
Yellow
bit.
Jackets and all. It does hurt. Yellow Jackets, Fear Street. It's going to the '90s now, and I don't like that.
I
That's
don't
my
either.
don't like that.
Mm-mm. I don't like that either.
Well, yeah, we got a couple stuff coming up. I'm going to be doing some Disney stuff coming up because I have a trip. I probably will do a review for or something, maybe a short for Harold and the Purple Crayon because I actually really enjoyed that movie. And then we've got so honestly, I'm going to make this the first Halloween in the middle for this year because it has to be. But
Heck
then
yeah.
obviously we have a lot of Halloween stuff coming up, Joker and Smile and all that. So I'll be doing all those. Yeah, so look out for all that. And thank you, Blair, for coming on again, giving all the thoughts. It's always such a good time. We always have
Thank you, Maddie.
so many. We have so much for the characters. Um,
I was like, I have no qualifications to do any of this except for that I'm spooky and I probably annoy your watchers, but I'm here for it. So like, and everyone got to see my
mhm.
cat.
I was saying thank you to the cat too for providing
Oh,
all
come
all
here.
the
Hold
maps.
on. Come here. Oh, this is his sister.
Oh, hi,
You're immortalized now. You're on the internet.
hi, Cleo. But alrighty, we gotta get out of here. But thanks guys for watching. And as always, keep hopes high, your stress low, and movies right in the middle, and Halloween right. See you guys later.